Good evening everyone and welcome to the South Eastern Area Planning Committee meeting on Wednesday the 23rd of June 2021. My name is Councillor Vanessa Bell and I am the chairman of this committee. Before we commence, can you hear me? Everyone hear me okay? Before we commence the business of the meeting, there are a few housekeeping issues to run through. Members, the setup for the meeting has been designed to mitigate for COVID. Therefore, can I ask all present to work to the protocols agreed at Council on 29th of April 2021 in the interest of member and officer safety. We are streaming this meeting live as well as recording, and by being present in the meeting, you are giving your consent to being recorded. Members and officers, during each item, please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak. You might have to wave at me quite significantly because the visuals aren't too great in here. And I will then invite you to speak at the appropriate time. When invited to speak, please remove your mask, put your visor on and speak clearly. Please reference a page or paragraph number when referring to the agenda papers and keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible. Please ensure your microphones remain off when not speaking. Apologies for absence. Berna.
Thank you, Chairman. We've received apologies from Councillors Boyce and Dewick. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 3, minutes, 26th of May 2021. It's recommended that the minutes of the meeting held on the 26th of May 2021, found on pages 7 to 10, are approved as a true and accurate record. Councillor Channer. We can hear you.
Okay. I wasn't there, Madam Chairman, as you know, but out of courtesy, I did email you and the clerks, so I've noticed that my apologies, which I had given by email, was not recorded. I'm led to understand it was said in the chamber on that night. However, I think as a matter of fact, it does need to be reflected in the minutes that I did give those apologies. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Channer. If we can amend.
Duly noted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other points on the minutes? No? Do I have a seconder? I propose that we so move. Thank you. Agreed by assent, members, with the amendment? Agreed. Lovely. Thank you. Item 4, declarations of interest, to disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other pecuniary interests or non-pecuniary interests relating to items of business on the agenda, having regard to paragraphs 6 to 8 inclusive of the Code of Conduct for members. Members are reminded that they are also required to disclose any such interests as soon as they become aware, should the need arise throughout the meeting. Members, Councillor Stamp.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to disclose, I'm a member of Essex County Council and they are consulted in some of the applications, but there's no pecuniary interest at all. Thank you.
Many thanks. Item 5, 200010-res, Glebe Meadow, Southminster, Essex. We move to agenda item 5, found on pages 11 to 32. So I can hand over to Ms Staplehurst, please, to present the report. Thank you.
First of all, there is a verbal update for this application. Just some clarification, the 4 affordable dwellings will be 2-bedroom dwellings, not 3 as referred to in the report. And condition 2 has also been updated as it referred to some plans which have since been superseded. This application is a reserve matters application for 13 dwellings, 8 4-bedroom market dwellings, 1 5-bedroom market dwelling and 4 2-bedroom affordable dwellings. The outline permission was allowed on appeal in 2016 and approved permission for 13 dwellings on the site and the access taken from Vicarage Court to the west. The principle of constructing residential dwellings at the site has therefore been established. This application seeks to approve the matters of scale, appearance, landscaping and layout. This is the location plan with the site outlined in red. For context, you can see the Southminster train station on the eastern side and the High Street is in the northwestern corner. This is the proposed development layout. The access, which was approved at outline stage, is taken from Vicarage Court to the west. The market dwellings are located in a linear formation central to the site, and the affordable dwellings are located within the northeastern corner. Each of the market dwellings has a detached garage and driveway, and the affordable dwellings have their parking on the driveways to the front and side. The southeastern part of the site consists of public open space with an attenuation basin in the corner. Additional planting is proposed around the boundaries and within the site, with much of the site remaining soft landscaped. These are the plans of house type B1, which is on plots 1, 4 and 6. House type C1 on plots 3 and 5. D1 on plot 2, 7 and 13. E1 on plot 8, which is the 5-bedroom dwelling. And the affordable dwellings on plot 9 and 10. And the affordable dwellings on plots 11 and 12. And these are the detached garage plans for the market dwellings. This is the street scene plan with view A showing the view facing west towards the market dwellings, which are central to the site, and view B showing the view facing south towards 2 of the market dwellings and 2 of the affordable dwellings. These photos show the site, the view facing the access taken from Vicarage Court, facing the site, and the view of the site, again from the entrance at Vicarage Court. And some photos showing the view east from the north boundary, the view west from the east boundary, the view along the eastern boundary adjacent to the King George playing field up to the east, and a view within the site. It's considered that the details of layout, scale, appearance and landscaping are acceptable and there would be no harm to the character of the area. The affordable housing and landscaping proposed is compliant with the obligations set out in the Section 106 agreement from the outline permission. It's also considered that the proposed development would represent sufficiently high quality development in terms of appearance and landscaping and would provide a good level of amenity space and parking provision. It's therefore recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Ms Staplehurst. Do any other officers want to speak before I go to members? No. Members, then, I believe over to you, Councillor Helm.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I notice this has been called in by Councillor Fluker, strangely, but yet he's not allowed to be here, not allowed to speak, and it's his ward. Don't you think that's a bit ridiculous?
You was on JSC as the chair when he was there, weren't you?
I'm asking the chairman, please. Do you think this is a bit ridiculous?
You may think so, Councillor Helm, but I couldn't possibly comment.
Okay, so you can't answer. Thank you very much.
Councillor Beale, who was also a Southminster ward member, I believe.
Yes, the only one here at the moment. Could you tell me what the Southminster Parish Council's views are?
Oh, Ms Staplehurst, can you, off the top of your head? I think it said that there wasn't a response, but I can't remember. I don't think they did.
No response.
No response, I thought so, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Any other? Councillor Bassinger.
Thank you. Could we go back to the slide with the actual planting and all the site itself? So all the affordable housing is all just in one area, is that correct? From what I can see, is that? And their amenity space is really small, isn't it? Compared to everybody else's, it just seems, there seems a lot of greenery elsewhere, and that seems to be shoved off in the corner somehow. And I just wonder, is that a good idea to have the affordable housing sort of compartmented over on one side and out the way, sort of tucked away, as it were, and everybody else kind of, you know, in a different sort of aspect. But also notice that they don't have any garages either, do they? So
No,
their
no.
parking, again, is just on the drive. I don't know, I mean, is that really something that we're sort of, you know, thinking is good planning when we're looking at this, Mr. Lee? I know I've said
Lee,
something
would you
wrong.
like to comment on that?
Oh, with my oh no. Not allowed to talk.
We're having some technical issues up here. Councillor Channer's mic was also being a bit problematic. I don't know if
If members can hear me, I'll
we can, I think, Mr. Lee.
It's an interesting question that Councillor Bastian has raised, and our policy does acknowledge that we don't want to pool all the affordable housing units together. But that policy, I think it's a figure of 13, is the cap. So there is a cap where we would say that over that is inappropriate. And this actual application, the level of affordable housing is below that. So while I agree with the principle wholeheartedly, we haven't got a policy that would actually highlight that concern. One of the other things is, and something that we've had problems with historically is on some of the larger sites, is that registered providers only want accommodation of a certain scale. They actually do not want properties that are above a certain scale. Obviously there's a value to it that they won't be able to get under, I think, one of the trusts and things. So we do have to make an on-balance decision about actually what the registered providers want, what will actually be delivered as affordable housing, alongside competing it with what the market wants. And you know, there is a difference. Sometimes actually, to be honest, in certain sites, we end up with properties through the affordable housing route that are larger than what they're trying to deliver. But unfortunately, there isn't really a strong policy to actually push back on that. So we have to make a planning judgment. I think personally, especially in this case, it's acceptable.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Councillor Bassinger again.
I appreciate all of that. It just seems to me that the four, rather than sort of incorporating, as we've just said, really, rather than incorporating the affordable housing, it seems to be, you know, it's on a plot where you could actually put one other house. They seem to have squeezed four in there, and I think is that just to, you know, circumnavigate the quota and get permission in some way. It just looks poor to me, really, that, you know, there are some families that are going to be squeezed into a corner, and I don't know what their aspect is, what they're overlooking. I can't really make it out, but I don't know. It just feels to me a bit of a, you know, square peg in a round hole type situation, and it looks like we've squeezed them in.
Sorry, I'll let Mr. Lee come back. I'm wondering whether it's important here to make the distinction between affordable housing and social housing, because this is affordable housing, which is a very different
Yeah, I apologise,
Madam
Chairman. That was my mistake. I didn't mean to say
No
that.
worries, Councillor Bassinger at all. If I can go to Mr. Lee to respond, then Councillor Skeens, then Councillor Stamp.
To help Councillor Bassinger, I think just answering some of the points Councillor Bassinger is raising is the fact that there are affordable housing properties is a moot point. What you're actually going here is that it's actually considered that four of the properties don't reflect the rest of the site, that they appear incongruous with that. And actually, to help, you know, I think, you know, you're almost misdirecting yourself by actually highlighting the fact that they are affordable. And if members don't think that the urban grain being considered that having a large block of a certain scale, certain bulk development relating poorly to another part is one thing, that's different to highlighting that they are the affordable housing unit, because there is no policy saying that they, or there is, but not for a scheme of this scale, where they would have to be more entwined, more together. So I think do worry you're slightly misdirecting yourself, but that's just my advice. You might not take the video. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Skeens, please.
Yes, I take on board the comments from Councillor Bassinger, and there was also, I wasn't quite sure of the difference in materials between the affordable houses. They looked different, their cladding was different. Can you clarify what they're actually made of, the affordable dwellings?
Through you, Chairman. They are different materials. I don't have a plan which shows specifically the specific materials that they are, but in the assessment of the report, we did consider that they used a mix of materials that are also used within the market dwellings as well. So yeah, I think the plans don't quite do it justice.
Obviously, what we would want to avoid a sort of sense of ghettoisation. You know, this is where the people who can't afford those houses live. But having said that, of course, that is the fact of reality. I mean, some houses are more expensive than others, and I've lived on a estate where there were bigger houses and smaller houses, and it wasn't the end of the world. But I do take Councillor Bassinger's point, and we don't want to find ourselves in a position where houses just look worse because they are more affordable. Part of the whole point of having affordable dwellings is having affordable, good dwellings of a high standard. That's all.
Thank you. I'll go to Councillor Stamp, then Councillor Hull, please. Councillor Stamp.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
You put your paddle down now, Councillor Stamp.
I just want to echo exactly what Councillor Bassinger and Skeens has said. I thought originally we weren't supposed to alienate affordable. It's supposed to be integrated. I think all the surveys and everything that was carried out to do with the LDP originally, anybody spoke to the police, and it is important that they integrated. To me, Councillor Bassinger is absolutely right. They're stuck out on a sore thumb. What we say, it looks like a sore thumb. It's not integrated. I actually don't like it, and I actually thank Mr. Lee for the comments he made earlier. And I think it doesn't fit part. It's not integrated. They could quite easily be put in the middle. And if you put housing that segregates, because to me it does look like it's segregation slightly, you can, I'm not saying you will, you can then later on get all sorts of issues and difficulties. It's a proven fact. When we looked at the NDP, when we was doing ours for Burnham, we did a lot of research on it, and it's really important people feel part of that. I know it's linear, but part of that community, that little community and that little cul-de-sac, they feel part of it, not stuck out on a whim. I'm sorry I haven't come up with the policies it's in breach of. I don't know if it's in D1, but I actually don't like it, and I really feel it should be part of that linear development proposal. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Stamp. Councillor Hull, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I'd just like to reiterate on Councillor Beale said at the PJ meeting the other night that the Southminster surgery is they've been promised a new one for 10 years, and they're not taking any more people, and it really needs to be chivied on because they've been promising one. So I don't know where all these people are going to go to a doctor, because in our area we just can't get one.
No, I appreciate that. Unfortunately, however, the principle of 13 houses on this site has already been agreed, so there will be 13 houses on this site. This is just a reserved matter, the design and layout. So unfortunately, it's too late for that argument, Councillor Hull, but thank you. Councillor Beale.
Thank you. Just to confirm that the drawing that's up there at the moment, proposed block plan, I think you'll find on the right-hand side, it's the schools, that's part of the school, St Leonard's School, and the actual land that they're on is actually called Glebe Meadow. Can that be confirmed?
Through you, Chairman, the site is called Glebe Meadow. Yes.
And to the right, as we look up there now, that is school ground, St Leonard's School.
Do you mean this area there?
Yes, all across there, yes.
I don't know if that's part of the school. That's part of King George playing field. Just there. I think the school might be to the north.
No, it's to the
Station's up there.
Yeah.
This
Right,
these.
where affordable housing is that wording is actually on school land. All behind that fence on the right hand side or hedge is Southminster School.
Right. Okay.
So isn't that?
Councillor
I'm
Skeens.
looking at the bigger block plan, which might be worth looking at, which shows the primary school is sort of right at the very top, and to the right is Southminster Community Hall, and that's the sort of collection of buildings they have down there if you're going to go and take some kids down to play soccer on the football. What am I saying? King George V Memorial Field. So I think the school's north of it, the site, isn't it?
I retract that statement. Now I've seen that plan. Yes, the school is to the north of that, which is where Red Dodgers, and to the right is King George of Memorial.
Thank you. Is that...
Sorry about that. I couldn't see the bigger plan.
That's fine, Councillor Beale. Councillor Stamp, was that a proposal then from you earlier?
Madam Chair, no, because I don't know what policy it's in breach of, to be fair, and I can't put something if it's not going to stand up, because Mr Lee will tell me off.
Mr Lee is smiling
Really,
there.
Chairman, as always, I don't necessarily require the members to quote the policies as long as obviously there are the policies to support that. That's all I would highlight is that if members are trying to raise concern with the fact that affordable housing is to the side on its own, our policy allows for that up to a certain figure. So that on its own wouldn't be a safe direction of travel for regional views. But I said if members are, members are just concerned that actually there are a number of small properties to the side that don't relate to the rest of the site, that's a different matter. But the fact that it is affordable housing shouldn't be what members are looking at. So our policy allows that up to a figure, I'm quoting something like 13, but it's more than we've got here. So there's a different issue between urban grain and all those matters. It shouldn't necessarily be specific about the fact that they are affordable housing units.
Madam Chair, can I
Yes.
just come back to ask a question?
Of
What
course.
normally happens, I'm trying to think of all the new estates that we've got, all this development we've now got around us, and I know when I walk across the ones opposite from me, you have a mixture of 2 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, 5 and they look absolutely fine because they're part of the development and that they don't look out of place. Whereas I do feel, the picture's gone again, so I do apologise, I feel it looks as though it is stuck out on a limb, and it doesn't look as though it's part of the actual proposal or the development. So that is my concern. I mean, what is it, the street scene? I don't know what policy I could use.
Yes.
If it's an urban design issue, that's
Yeah.
into consideration as a subjective judgment call on that. And if you're just saying that they all happen to be small properties that don't relate to the rest of it, that's one thing. What I'm saying is that you can't go, these are affordable housing units and they're not relating to it, because our policy actually allows that to a certain extent. You're looking, I think, because the policy talks about integration and all the rest of it. So I think what members actually, are misdirecting themselves to a certain extent about the fact that they are affordable housing units.
I'm not looking at affordable with all due respect.
Is that you're talking about the urban grain, the
Yeah.
urban design, the fact that there's a poor relationship between this proposed dwellings in that site compared to the main line of properties. And that's how members, because obviously we don't consider it to be a big issue. If I'm honest, I think the outline application had an indicative layout very similar to this. Obviously the inspector didn't necessarily raise any concerns with that at the time.
That's a different issue, as you always say. That was totally
Yes.
different. You can't then throw that back at us now, Mr Lee, when you say that was the total, that they didn't even look at reserve matters
I'm just flagging up, but that was what was. I'm just giving. Obviously, a lot of members weren't present at the time of the outline application, so I'm just trying to give you some background information. That wasn't similar to the indicative layout that was submitted. But as I said, if members don't consider that the urban grain is appropriate, doesn't relate to it, it's not accretive to them, all things like that. If members have that, we can. That's what members are trying to say. So we can form a reason for reviews like that. But I would not encourage members to highlight the fact that they're affordable housing units. That's what I say.
Madam Chair, can I
Thank
ask
you.
another question? Do you think there is a possibility that it could, I don't know if you could defer it to then go back to the developer? Because sometimes if the members see fit that there is an issue, to go back to see if there is a discussion to have with the developer to integrate it more. Do you think that there might be a possibility to do that?
Chairman, the only comment I'd say is that this would require a whole redesign of the scheme, and we should determine an application as submitted. It would, I think, go above and beyond what would be reasonable to be dealt with as this part of this application. So that wouldn't be my advice to members, no.
Okay, Councillor Bassinger, then Councillor Channer, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The only thing I would like to say as well is that Councillor Skeens has established that the affordable dwellings are actually made of different material, and I think another consideration would help to have them of the same material, or at least looking similar to the houses that are not affordable. But as a design in itself, to me, it sticks out like a sore thumb that there's been squeezed in the corner for smaller dwellings, which I don't think really is integrated at all, and I just feel that those that lived there would feel very much outside of that community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Shanna.
I'll have to speak loud then because my mic's not working. Can you hear me?
Yes.
What I would say is then, looking at the report and about the acceptability of the 13 dwellings, which has been established at outline stage, obviously on appeal by the inspector, the report did make reference to the layout that's now becoming before us under the reserve matters is essentially largely that which I believe is at outline stage, indicative. Were there any particular changes? I mean, is it wholly the same or different? What I would say is, in my view, bearing in mind the entrance of that road, and it is referred to in the report, in Mayland I'm aware of when development's been put forward, there have been refusals largely because of disturbance of the number of properties that are going to access the road, affecting actually the residential developments already there. And I have noticed that's been made in the report, but there will be extra noise and lights, cars going up and down. But the officer feels that's, if you like, not enough in the harm degree to obviously feel this should not be approved. So could I just have some comments on that regarding this mirroring exactly the indicative layout that the inspector saw when he allowed that outline approval under appeal? Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Steeple.
Through you, Chairman. It is a similar layout to the outline permission, but without having a look at those plans and comparing the two, I can't confirm that it is exactly the same. In relation to the noise and disturbance, as has been said, the principle of erecting 13 dwellings on the site has already been established, so we can't sort of object to that at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you, Mr. Lee, can you clarify whether the entrance was the same on the initial?
Relying on my, as in I was at the hearing, the officer of the council, so it is trying to cast back to the clouds at the time, so I apologise if I am incorrect, but if I remember correct, the access was the same and that matter was discussed at the hearing. I can't recall whether it was because it was refusal or because it was the general public raised it, but you know, as Mr. Steeple said, the inspectors confirmed that 13 houses on this site, the access from there is acceptable, and the principle of noise and disturbance was considered at that time. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor Channer?
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bassinger again.
I know we're not really supposed to be discussing the access, but the actual access to the site is through a sort of a larger community, and the roads are absolutely minuscule that lead the one road that leads to that. And should anyone be parking outside their house, there is no way anything larger than a small car would get to that site. So I find it really hard to believe that the officers have just approved the access and the accessibility to that site and actually deem it possible to build 13 or 14 houses, or how many there are, 13, using, you know, cranes, lorries, God knows what, through that other community, that other sort of the wider community. There's just tiny roads and a school, but as you say, we can't discuss that now. So
Well, it appears that the planning inspector thought that it was okay, Councillor Bassinger, unfortunately. But Councillor Beale, was that a paddle in the air?
Yes, it is, yes. It's an old flag of truce. I'm interested about, first of all, in answers about the roadways. They are accredited to a certain standard which has been accepted by Essex County Council. That's the road that's coming in from the north. What is that blue line, by the way? That's a bit confusing from here.
Ms. Staplehurst, the blue line?
Through you, Chairman, I think it's part of the visibility splay.
Sorry?
I think it's part of the visibility splay.
Okay, right, thank you.
Okay.
The boundary that you see, which has got the arrow going over it, which has got affordable housing and open space, that is the boundary with the King George V Memorial Field. There is a fence, or has been a fence there for many, many years. What they doing, it was brought up during discussions, what they doing about consolidating that to make certain that people can't get from there into the King George V Memorial Field that way.
Through you, Chairman, they have proposed boundary treatments. I'd have to, it does say it in the report, I'd have to double check what boundary treatments they're proposing, but the whole site will be bounded by fencing.
Right, and that would
Thank
be
you.
sufficient to stop you getting on, because to come under the rules of the King George Memorial Bill, the open spaces about the boundaries have got to be sort of reinforced suitable for the nature of the usage of the King George bit. Okay, I'll come back to you about looking at the boundary treatment. All right.
Thank you, Councillor Bill. Members, if we don't have an alternative proposal, then I would propose that we accept the officer recommendation. Do we have an alternative proposal? Or are you seconding that recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Helm. So all those in favour, I'll now take a vote, Berna.
Either a show of hands or a vote.
Show of hands, show of paddles, waving around things. Those in favour. 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that an up or down paddle?
Kind of abstain.
It's an abstain kind of paddle. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I make it 4. And all those against, members. I've got 1 there. And abstentions? That's 3. So that is passed. That's carried, members. So that is approved. Thank you. So moving on to item 6, 20/01344/full, Dengie Project Trust, Knightswood Centre, Steeple Road, Southminster. So this is agenda item 6 on pages 33 to 62. So I don't have Ms Matthews, so I'm guessing. Oh, she is coming. Good, good. Otherwise it would have been you in the hot seat. Stabilised. Councillor Shanna.
To keep putting the mic on. Actually, just thinking about it, I will declare an interest. I'm not sure if I need to because I'm not one person still there, but I think they might be. The Dengie Project Trust, when we're talking about Knightswood, I believe I know one of the trustees, and I believe they're a fellow trustee with me on another body that I sit on. So I don't see this peculiarly in this, I'm just declaring, I think that is the case. Maybe they're not, but I'm going to declare that, believing they might still be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Me also.
Yep, Councillor Helm also same, yes. And Councillor Hull the same. As well. Thank you, members. So if I could hand over to you, Ms Matthews, please.
Thank you. Just start the presentation.
I'm only standing up to see Madam Chairman. Otherwise,
Are you a bit challenged by the screens, Councillor Shanna? Are you getting the glare?
Across my eyes, so it's better to stand up and see it all.
Absolutely. I'm not trying to make a break for it halfway through the meeting.
I might do, you never know.
Councillor Bassett. Yes, by all means.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members. So this is an application at the Knightswood Centre, Steeple Road, Southminster. It's for the conversion of 2 of the existing buildings into 11 flats and 2 maisonettes, and the construction of 2 bungalows to the rear. So the application site is, as you can see, is there. It's on the eastern side of Steeple Road. To the north and east is open countryside, and to the west on the other side of the road is Squeets Care Home. To the south is the care home which this site used to form part of. So that's the location plan, and the buildings that to be converted are this building here and that building there. So these 2 large buildings, as I said previously, used as part of the adjacent care home. They're towards the front of the site, and then to the rear there's some timber, sort of single-storey buildings, which would be demolished as part of the proposal. So that's a larger version of the existing block plan, and as you can see that the building is actually physically connected at the moment to, or attached to, the care home here. So part of the proposal will be to remove that physical link which you'll be able to see on this slide here. So they'll create a road access way along this southern boundary of the site. So this is one of the buildings here that will be converted into 11 flats, and then this building here will be converted into two. They're called maisonettes, but they're just two dwellings really. And then at the back you've got three bungalows, one detached and a pair of semi-detached, and then the other building is this one along here, which would be a cycle store and refuse store. The existing access is sort of, they've got an in and out access at the moment, so one of the accesses will be closed, and they would just be using the one, the other one that will be remaining. And you've got parking areas at the front and also in the middle, and there's an area of communal amenity space proposed at the front of the site here. The external amenity space will consist of a mixture of terraces and balconies, gardens and a communal area, as I mentioned, and the existing vehicle access as they would also be closed. So these are the buildings that would be demolished to the rear of the site. And these are the proposed elevations of, this is the main building, so this would be the 11 flats. There's fairly limited changes to the existing buildings. There's some material and weatherboarding being added, balcony be added, and then fenestration pattern has been tweaked, but essentially it's the same building. And these are the floor plans. So you've got, this is the first floor, and there's a small second floor within the roof space, and then the ground floor, with it, and the little terrace being proposed for one of the flats there. So these are the maisonettes. So you've got two bedroomed properties there. Again, the building is largely as it is. There are some fenestration changes and obviously reconfigured internal layout. And these are the bungalows to the rear. You've got the detached one and the pair of semi-detached. They're got modern design, monopitch roofs, but that does help reduce the height of the buildings compared to a pitch roof. Elevations of the cycle and bin store that I mentioned earlier. So we've got some street elevations. The top one being along Steeple Road, so you've got the development here, and then this is the care home to the south, and then you've got an east-west sort of cross-section through the site with the main building here, and then the maisonettes set back slightly in the middle, and then you've got the bungalows at the back. The applicant has provided some sketch schemes showing before and after. Quite similar, certainly in terms of the size. Inside the building remains the same. And then we've got some photos showing the so this one on the right is sort of the entrance to the site, the one that's going to be closed. And then you've got other photos showing the outbuildings at the back, which will be demolished, and different views of the existing buildings to be converted. So the development has been assessed as being acceptable in principle and overall, particularly taking into account the benefits and its contribution towards the council's 5-year housing land supply at a time when the supply is significantly below 5 years. That would outweigh the limited harm the development will cause in relation to accessibility. In particular, the provision of 16 residential units, a limited distance from the settlement of Southminster, would weigh significantly in favour of the proposal, and there would also be economic benefits generated. The other points worth mentioning is the proposal is largely for conversion of existing buildings rather than new build, and which were used for a residential related use. And there will also be a number of buildings which will be demolished, so to rear the site. Development is not anticipated to cause material harm to the character appearance of the area, the amenity of occupiers and neighbouring properties, or nature conservation. Development has also been found to be satisfactory in terms of the quality of life for the occupiers of the units, and no objections are raised in relation to flood risk and drainage. Provision for adequate vehicle access and levels of parking would be made. The applicant has already made the necessary financial contribution towards RAMS, and officers consider that conditions would adequately cover the issue of on-site ecology. The applicant has also agreed to enter into a Section 106 agreement to ensure that if they propose to enlarge the site at any point in the future, no necessary provision of affordable housing would be made. So on that basis, it's recommended that the planning permit is granted, subject to Section 106 agreement and the conditions as set out in your agenda papers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Matthews. Members, as you know, we have now returned to in-person public participation. However, as chairman, I've exercised my discretion and agreed, due to mitigating circumstances, to read a submission from an objector, Mr Matthew Newbury. Mr Newbury states, this proposal is situated in an unsustainable location outside the settlement boundary of Southminster. It has been stated that Southminster School and GP surgery would be a reasonable level of services and facilities to meet the day-to-day needs of future occupiers. The current strain on services and facilities does not appear to have been taken into consideration, and nor does the likely impact that this proposal would have on them. There is no footway leading from the site to the village, thus raising a highway safety issue and increasing the reliance on private car use, which will in turn result in increased vehicular movements within the village. It should be noted that there are limited bus services using Steeple Road. It would be inappropriate to increase the accommodation on the site with the provision of 3 bungalows. Additional accommodation would fall outside of reusing existing buildings and should weigh against the proposal. Development in Southminster is at odds with local services, facilities and infrastructure, making it an unsustainable location for development. Any other officers wish to comment before I throw the debate open? Okay, members. Councillor Beale, please.
Thank you. Following up put forward by Mr Newbury, there is a problem down there. We've got lots of elderly people across the road from there at Squeaks Farm House, etc. Also, the bungalows within the Knightswood area, they've got elderly people. Where are the bus stops for that proposed? Are they there or are they proposed, etc.? The bus stops adjacent to that site.
Thank you. Ms Matthews.
Yeah, through Chairman, there is actually a bus stop right outside the site. I can't remember exactly where it is, but there is one right outside the site. And in the agenda papers, I have set out the bus services that are provided to and from that bus stop. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are they adequate? Are they going to be adequate?
There is a bus service, and for a rural area, it covered most of the day, and there was even a service on Sundays. So it seemed to provide, if you take into account the rural location of the site, it did seem to provide an option for people living on the site to be able to use the bus rather than having to get in their car. So there were services, going from memory now, but you could get to Malden, you obviously get into Southminster and the railway station and down through to Burnham. So it did seem, obviously not compared to an urban area, but there was an adequate level of bus services for the site. Yeah, I think.
I'm asking that question because the 31B service that comes through there and 31C, I think it is, they're very, very infrequent service. Your main service comes in from the Steeple, Scots Hill, comes around that way from the west. The number of services coming through via Steeple round by this set of building, etc., is nowhere near the frequency is on the main road.
Thank you.
Has anybody checked the timetable of that service?
Mr Lee, and then I will come to you, Councillor Skeens.
Thank you, Chairman. As Matthew said, the officer report goes into the access to bus services and it's, the frequency, etc. Obviously that has been part of the thought process of the recommendation coming to forming a recommendation. As Matthews has looked at that, said this is a rural district, we have to strike a balance between having a certain level of access to public transport and acknowledging that it won't be as frequent
Councillor
When
Beale.
I come back again, it's about the pavement along what would you call Steeple Road. There is no pavement down that side. At the bottom of it, on the southern end of that road, they're putting a new road in from David Fisher Way, which is on the maps, etc. But there still isn't any pedestrian way there, and a lot of people are using invalid scooters, etc. So are they supposed to be driving on the main road?
Is that the existing problem you're talking about?
Yes, it could be, yes.
That's not an issue for this application, if that's an existing problem.
Could the Essex County Council be asked to put that in education?
My understanding is Highways have approved this, or have not approved, have not raised any concerns to this application.
Councillor Beale's concern is actually about the
What's happening now?
residential old people's accommodation that's surrounding it. If the committee asks, as done before, we have written to the Highway Authority, but we've never really got anything out of it, for want of a better phrase. But if the committee wishes, we can do that. We have done that before. But see, this application, like all planning applications, are not to solve existing problems. They have to wash their own face in relation to planning matters. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Could we send a letter, Madam Chairman?
We can, Councillor Beale. Could we do that, please?
You need to, Chair, the committee would need to agree.
Committee. Do we wish to do that? All those in favour?
Do what, sorry?
To write a letter to Highways outlining our concerns.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah? Can we agree that by assent, members?
Consent, agreed.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to go to Councillor Skeens, then Councillor Channer, please.
Yeah, I don't know whether this is possible, but I'm looking at the Google Map vision of it, and the advantage of that is that it shows you just how rural this particular place is. There's, as you go up Steeple Road, there's this collection of houses, some of the photographs we've already seen, which have a very rural feel. The new development doesn't have a rural feel, and it just feels like we're encroaching into the countryside more and more with developments like this. I am concerned, and I don't know whether we have any power over this, it seems we don't, but I'm concerned about the amount of development happening and no commensurate increase in facilities. The concern that the villagers and the people in the town of Southminster have about the fact that their surgery is full and the usual things that we hear in Burnham and Southminster so often. But particularly it's the rural aspect, and as Councillor Beale has been pointing out, the nature of Steeple Road. The good news about the Google Map is it does show two bus stops there. My concern is the people who live in these houses, and these are not the older generation that necessarily that are living by. I just think it's going to, it's just not the right place for such a large development. And it's outside the settlement boundary, and it's pushing out into the countryside. And I know we are under tremendous pressure from central government to push into the countryside, but where we can resist it, we live in a rural area, and I feel that we are compromising at every turn the rural status of where we live until it's just going to become easier and easier to put more and more development in until eventually we become an urban area. I know that sounds extreme, but it's how it's beginning to feel, and I'm not alone in those feelings.
Thank you, Councillor Skeens. Councillor Channer.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think an element that really concerns me, and it has been mentioned in the report, and I'm going to refer to the 106 heads of terms. I mean, we're always told we mustn't think about what might happen in the future. We have to deal with everything on its own merits. However, I read in the report, and there are concerns, getting the makeup right now, about this site being intentionally separated from another site. And I was quite surprised, I will be frank, to see the heads of terms stating quite specifically, in my opinion, affordable housing shortfall to be mitigated through adjoining site. I felt that was almost inciting phase 2, this could be phase 1, and I'm just concerned that in a way the authority is indicating perhaps a permission could be forthcoming for something else by the very words used, an overage clause in bullet point 1 and bullet point 2, affordable housing shortfall to be mitigated through adjoining site. That to me is inciting Another application, should this be approved, for a larger site, and that is something that really concerns me, bearing in mind advice given to members throughout the years I've been on this council. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to you, Mr. Lee, there,
Thank you,
surprisingly.
Yes, the application, officers are aware that the site in its entirety includes another parcel of land. Planning law is clear that if it can be perceived that an applicant has intentionally split a site to gain some sort of benefit in relation to affordable housing provision or secondary provisions generally, that adjoining site has to shoulder the burden if there's an apparent intentional approach. So irrespective of whether or not we actually put that condition on, if there was a subsequent application that came forward, because at the time the purchasing site is one site that Matthew just put up for everyone to be able to see, we would legally have a right to do that. The applicant's fully aware of the point of law, and this they've accepted this part of 606 is for clarity, it's even to protect us. We wouldn't end up in any argument about it. It's not the LPA or the council acknowledging or inviting a second application. To be honest, the bullet point, maybe it's not worded perfectly, but it's which I'm quite happy to acknowledge. I added it myself personally quite late. Actually, when Councillor Chan read it out, it isn't as clear as maybe it should have been. I'm quite happy to acknowledge that.
But it's clear to me, Madam Chairman.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think the problem is it's clear to what it sounds like. It's not what it's meant to say. That's what
Right.
the problem is. But all that is saying is that the Section 106 would tie into the adjoining piece of land. It would mean even if it was sold off in the future, there would still be financial mitigation towards the council. So it's a belt and braces approach, and I would hope that, you know, if members wanted an informative that went on any approval that stated something along the lines of, you know, the requirement to mitigate through the adjoining site if necessary does not show any sign that the council is encouraging or accepting the development on this site, I think, you know, the LPA more than council more than reasonable to impose that if there's any concern that there could be any perception of that, because that is not what that point or states or what officers are trying to say to members or to the committee or anything. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Before I go to Councillor Stamp, Councillor Channer, does that allay your concerns at all? No.
It doesn't. Because the wording is critical, and that's what's on this order paper. To me, I don't know the wording that will be applied on the flushing out of that. There'd have to be a schedule, obviously, should anything be discerned. I think it is inciting a further development to come forward, and you know, that concerns me about the basis of the application. Therefore.
Thank you, thank you. Councillor Stamp, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm looking at the conclusion 3.2.2, and it says the development is not anticipated to cause material harm to the character or appearance of the area, the amenity or occupiers for neighbouring properties or nature conservation. I totally disagree with that. I think it's totally out of character. I think it is another development that is taking away the character of what we need to be preserving for this district. I'm not saying we shouldn't have developments, but they should be in a suitable place. I don't agree with the officers that it's in a sustainable location. I myself have been to Knightswood many a time when I was the Mayor of Burnham to support events and things that go on there, and it is out in the sticks. It's difficult to find. There is no footways, and whilst I take on board what Mr Lee said to Councillor Beale about is an existing problem about footpaths or whatever, it maybe is, but it's still going to be a problem if this development is actually approved. So there is still an issue of actually putting the facilities, the footpath, making it safe to the residents who are going to be living in this development if it is approved, Madam Chairman. I do not like it, and I'm sorry, Madam Chair, but I won't be supporting it, and I would like to put a counter-proposal that we reject it for the reasons that I've just said, that I think it is against policies. What is it, Mr Lee, policy, what I've just said?
You don't need to quote the policy. You can summarise what you're arguing.
My summarise is that it is harmful, Mr Lee, to the character and appearance of the area. I think it is not sustainable. I know you're going to argue that there's a bus stop and everything. Yes, there are 5 buses, I think I read, because I've read the report. And I think it is encroaching on the countryside, and I think it goes against policy H4. I think that's my view. Other members may have a different one, Madam Chair. They may support it, they may not, but that is my view. I will not support it, Madam Chairman.
I'd like to second that.
Okay, thank you. Do any other members wish to speak? Or Councillor Helm, are you
Thank
waving
you,
your...
Madam Chairman. I'm a bit confused really, because normally when it's outside the village boundary, narrow roads, no pavements, no street lights, the officers recommend refusal. Yet here we are recommending approval. That's a mile to walk to the bus, to the doctors or the chemist or anything else, at least a mile, if not more. And the first bit of the road down to the Untitled Essex is absolutely dangerous.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to walk along there, let alone cycle. It's so dangerous. You can't even get two cars round the bend. One is adequate. And if a lorry comes round there, God help us all.
Yeah.
So although you say we've got bus service, fine, and we'll have to rely on the car, which are both fuel guzzling, emissions, all that sort of thing in the countryside, which you don't want. And we're struggling to get down to the doctors, which aren't, you probably won't get into either because that's full up. You won't get to school because that's full up. Where are we going? Why are we recommending this? Don't the officers realise what's going on? Thank you for that.
Thank
Sorry
you.
to be rather curt. I apologise.
Would you wish to come back, Mr Lee?
We're required to deliver housing. There is not the schools, the whole lot, you're not raising objection to this. Whether or not you agree with that, we aren't having evidence that there's any harm in prospective matters such as that. This site, is at the moment could be used as a C2 unit for a care home without the need for planning permission. There could be more people living in that property tomorrow than where they're proposing to do through this application, and that is material consideration for the determination application. You don't necessarily have to agree with officers, but it is material consideration that it is and can lawfully be used for habitable accommodation. Secondly, as Matthew showed, there is quite a lot built form already on this site, and obviously some needs to be removed, and that has to be a balancing process against the application. And this isn't a virgin green field. We are significantly short in relation to housing units, and government does encourage reuse of brownfield sites, which this is, and those are all material considerations that weigh heavily in this favour. And to pick up Councillor Skeen's point from earlier, we have to make a difficult decision, whether it's this application or another one. We will have to make a difficult decision, and if we struggle more and more to deliver a 5-year land supply, the quality of the defendants we'll be able to robustly say no to will get lower, and that is the reality of it. And so we are conscious of the lack of 5-year land supply. It's a tilted balance in favour of them, and this is a brownfield site. It can be used for residential accommodation, maybe not dwellings, but residential accommodation tomorrow. And all those things weigh exceptionally heavily in favour of this application. And that's why you, Councillor Helm, why is this up for approval? That's exactly why it's up for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I'll go to Councillor Skeens, then Councillor Stamp, please.
I wanted to come back with something Mr Lee.
Will you give way? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Skeens. I just wanted to come back with the care home situation. I totally agree exactly what you said. So a care home can be built there. But I think you'll find possibly that the strategy coming from Essex County Council or central government is that care homes are not going to be so popular now because they're looking after people within their home. So I think in future you're going to have less care homes because of the change in... It is coming from central government, Mr Lee, anyway. I know it is. Do you disagree with me? Because you're looking at me.
Mr Lee, then Councillor Skeens.
Essex County Council government is encouraging that we look to house people at home, extra care units, etc. And that will probably lead to a reduction in demand for care homes. But what that will mean is we have vacant care homes such as this, and whether or not, and that's the direction of travel. At the moment is where we are right now, and that's the application in front of us right now. And it may well transpire that in years to come we have a lot more application for existing care homes to be converted into flats and might possibly be supported by officers, but that's something for the future, not for this application at this moment. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr Lee. Councillor Skeens.
Yes, the future. It's always so difficult. We're not meant to think about the future, unless, of course, we have to think about the future. And I'm just looking at this image here. There's development 500 metres or so to the south. It's inevitably going to, it seems likely, it's going to connect up along the Steeple Road, which is inadequate. There's no provision to improve the connections to the town. And that's the key thing for me. If it's going to be care home people living there, people who are in care, then one assumes there may be carers and people to help them with the transport. But here we have a situation where we have a thin, a small road, Steeple Road, and no other way in or out except via there. And it just seems that what is on that site already is enough. Thank you very much. And if we're going to add more, which is out of character, which is entirely visually out of character with the rural area of the photographs that we were shown, I just don't think that's good. That's good. I think it's bad, in fact. And while I completely appreciate Mr. Lee's concerns about the 5-year housing supply, and I understand it, I just think that this particular location is not the place to do it. That, yes, we have to do this. We have to bend to the authorities above us that tell us that we have to do this. But I just don't think we should be doing it here. That's my view. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Skeens. So we have a proposal, I believe, which was to go against the officer recommendation. So I take that one first, I believe.
Yes, please.
So, members, the proposal is to go against the officer recommendation. Can we do that by assent, or do we want to?
Just get Councillor Stamp just to repeat it again, just so
Yes.
Could you, Councillor Stamp, please?
Not to get it perfectly, but we get the body of the...
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr Lee. I basically said I believe it does cause material harm to the character and appearance of the area and the occupiers of the neighbouring properties. What I said a few other things as well. I can't remember exactly what the other ones were. We should read it down. Did you take minutes, Berna?
I did read it.
Hang on, I've got another one because I've highlighted it somewhere else. Go on, Berna, you help me out, please.
If I can just comment on that.
H4.
Yes, please
not
do, Mr Lee.
sustainable.
Obviously, a lot of the development is existing, so
But it's the
they're not knocking it down.
it's
Mr. Chairman, they're knocking
No,
down
they're
the
not.
section that subdivides to break the connection. That
Yeah.
the bulk of the building will still remain. So
Can we have a look at the images of the houses themselves and
didn't fit-
photographs?
One at a time, please,
Sorry.
members.
It was in Congress, wasn't it? It was in Congress. It was.
There's that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That-
And now you can go to the photographs of the site further on. Right, all those. And then we've got
There
this.
it is.
We've got clear rural style housing
Yeah.
there. And then you go back to the other, and there's just a massive contrast between the two, in my subjective point of view.
So, Councillor Stamp, you said that you felt it was harmful to the character and appearance of the area, not in a sustainable location, encroaching on the countryside and contrary to policy H4.
Yeah. Some
Fairly
basic.
comprehensive, Councillor Stamp, I
Thank you,
think.
Bernard.
May I assist,
Thank you. Thank you.
Narrow road with no pavements and no street lights.
Connectivity.
Infrastructure, really.
Infrastructure.
Councillor Helm said.
Yes.
clarity, the main bulk of that building is remaining that.
It's exactly the same, isn't it, Mr Lee? Yeah, I was slightly confused about that.
About the genericness, for want of a better phrase, of the wording, because the vast bulk of that development is sitting there on the site at the moment, and, you know, there are certain buildings to be demolished. I don't know if Ms Matthews just wants to maybe take members through that again.
Well, please do, yeah.
Yes, I think.
That looks completely different. Why?
So
Yeah,
it's
I
the
think
same
the photo, this photo here on the right, that does look quite a small building, but in fact, in reality, that is that building there, and the view that you just saw was just the small front elevation. It goes all the way back here, and that's also an existing building. So that's existing view from Steeple Road looking from the north, and this is proposed, so that building is all still there. In fact, it's going to be made slightly smaller because they're going to take the link off between that and the care home. And then this building here is the same, it's the same size, same height. The only new build is the Yeah, you can see it was the cycle and refuse store, which is this little low profile building along the boundary, and the other element was the single story bungalows at the back. So all this here is already there.
What, like that?
Like that, yeah.
With windows.
It just doesn't
Yeah.
look, how can it look so different from the photograph? That just doesn't make sense to me. That looks like a pretty standard modern development, which doesn't really fit in the countryside. You can find it in any city. And then we've got the photographs that we actually see that look like rural buildings in the countryside. How has the architect or the developers managed to do something that looks so different? And that's what we've got to go with. We've got to go with what we can see. We can't go with what we imagine.
Councillor Channer.
Well, yes, thank you. Just going back to Mr. Lee and saying about what's there when you have a care home, the report actually made it quite clear that Essex County Council, I thought, had tried to market this as a care home.
Yes.
And that there was no, the building was actually marketed by Lambert Smith Hampton from April 2018 as a care home, as ECC had no further use for the property, but whilst there was interest expressed, no financial offers were made by care home providers. So I know what Mr. Lee's saying, but here we have the fact it was marketed, so hence why officers they feel that it's more acceptable to have residential on this site. But I just make that point.
Thank you. Mr. Lee, would you like to come back and then Councillor Skeins?
One of Councillor Skeins, the application should be determined according to the plans that have been submitted, which, as Ms Matthews has shown, are the same in relation to those elevations. That is what it should be assessed against. The photographs are there as some assistance, but the application should be determined on the plans. In relation to Councillor Chairman's point, officers quite, it says in the report, acknowledge that the property has been marketed as a care home and hasn't been taken up, and therefore we are where we are. In relation to the current application, our policy requires that has happened and has been evidenced, and that's what they've done, and that's why the reuse of buildings in rural areas outside certain boundaries is supported in this instance for this policy. But that doesn't take away the simple fact that the fallback position is, if they decided to, there could be people in there tomorrow, and that is just the fallback position is a material consideration of termination application. I'm just providing members with all the salient points they need to be aware of when coming to their recommendation. I'm not saying they have to come to a certain one, but I'm just making sure that all of the issues are before them when coming to an informed decision. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Skeins, then Councillor Bassinger, then Councillor Stamp, please.
Up on the board it says proposed elevations main block. Could we go back to existing elevations main block?
Well, I didn't actually put them on because they were
I mean, are
so
they
similar to what was there. But
well, that's that. I mean, this is where we are. We're at this
Yeah.
critical phase. I think we
Yeah.
do need to see them if we can, because I can't remember. I did look at this, but I can't remember them being the same, and I just remember being shocked by that. But if they are the same, then my argument is not as strong as I thought it was.
My understanding is that they've stuck a rather unattractive balcony type thing on and changed the fenestration slightly. Would that be about right? Ms Matthews?
yes.
That summarises to a certain extent. I don't know quite exactly what the officer's report says, but yeah.
That's
section of the report basically highlights those the changes to the, something similar to the changes to the building.
Thank you. Councillor Bassinger, please. Well, it's deciding whether it's going to work or not. It's flashing green at us.
Have I done? There we go.
There we go.
That's working. Yeah, I would just, sort of like to backtrack really and just say I agree with everything pretty much that's been said, especially by Councillor Stamp. I think we're looking at a site which really and truly, to me, is totally unsustainable. It's outside of the village, of the boundary, which has been established. I don't know how far away it is from the main settlement, but it certainly isn't within walking distance, I believe. When we're looking at this, how many flats are there, may I ask, please?
Is it 8?
Through your Chairman, there's 16 units in total. 3 of those will be bungalows, so
So in
13.
13.
13. So, we're looking at 13, possibly, each of those places would have to have a car. So, I mean, I'm presuming there is adequate parking within that development.
My understanding is it meets the parking SPD, does it, Ms Matthews?
Through Chairman, yes, the parking provision is the at least the minimum that we would require to comply with the SPD.
But certainly, you know, to get, apart from this meagre bus service, to get to the main settlement, each person would need to go by car, so that puts more pressure. I think also, poor old Southminster has had enough pressure put on it, and this is just adding. I think also, when you look at the design of this, I know we are looking at the same building. They're not knocking it down, they're going to refurb the same building. But I must admit, the new aspect that we're getting looks far worse than the old one. So as far as design is concerned, you know, I'd seen to see the old one there and the old site. When I look at that, I find that really distressing. That looks completely out of character for a rural area. That to me that's box standard housing estate. And I guess that is the same building, just with, I don't know, windows put in it, but it certainly hasn't added anything to the design. In fact, I think it's detracted. So I would say poor design is possibly a feature. Just one other thing. There was a mention of economic benefit. Exactly how is economic benefit being brought by this? Is it just number of people? Or?
Microphone off,
Oh,
please,
sorry.
Councillor Messenger. Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Chairman, that's I mean, it's a general comment in terms of any residential development that there will be jobs created through the builders and the suppliers for the project. There is also the economic side of things in terms of additional customers for any existing businesses in Southminster and any of those services. And in rural areas, sometimes it can be quite advantageous to have extra customers to make services more viable than there might be if they didn't have quite so many people to serve. So it's not, it's certainly not one of the main arguments of in terms of in support of the application, but it is a factor, and it is something that the government requires us to take into account. And if it went to appeal, that would be certainly something that the inspector would refer to as part of their decision, and say that there would be some economic benefits. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Skeens.
Could I
keep it
just
brief?
quickly come back on that?
Sorry, yes.
I mean, again, I think when we're looking at the tilt system, which is the way we are governing things, the balance system, sorry. You know, we're looking at normally the sort of 3 or 4 elements, and here we've got sustainability, which I think is completely, it's not sustainable, and economic. And actually, in itself, it's not really bringing anything economically apart from maybe a footfall of somebody going to the shop and some short-term employment for builders. But in itself, economically, it's not really adding anything to the area apart from very, very small. So if we're looking at the balance system, I would say the balance system is sort of dictating that this should not be an approved site.
Thank you. Councillor Skeens?
Just very briefly, is it possible to bring up the existing elevation?
They're not on the presentation, I believe. Is that right?
It's not
Ms.
possible.
Matthews?
I can't find it. That's the trouble.
No, I've got them on my list, but I'm just I don't know whether anyone can help me amend the presentation.
Councillor Stant, did you want to come back whilst Ms Matthews is looking?
Okay. Nick, will you turn your...
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. It says here, policy E4 supports the change of use of existing rural buildings to other employment generation uses. The conversion of the rural buildings to the residential use would therefore conflict with this policy. So, and I'm trying to find everything. I know I haven't read everything today, and I do apologise, Madam Chair. But, you know, it is in conflict with our policies. So, you know, policy S8 of the LDP steers new development towards existing urban areas. You know, it's not a really urban area to me, it's a rural area. You know, and you're going to urbanise it by putting 13 flats there and 3 bungalows, or 11 flats and 3 bungalows. You're creating, as far as I'm concerned, or this council would create what I would class as urban sprawl. And I totally take on board what Councillor Bassinger said. Yes, you can turn around and say you're bringing employment, but it's not. You're actually going to be taken away from other services that we're struggling with, which every other member's mentioned, which is schools, doctors, etc. So that to me has got to be balanced as well within the report. And yes, I know the argument is, and Mr Lee's heard this to me, and I shall say it, even with the next round of LDP, we have to balance school places, we have to balance NHS services, because that's what we're elected to do, to represent our residents, and we have to keep fighting. And I actually don't believe, as I said, Madam Chair, at the beginning, it is in the right place.
Chairman, I'll come back on the
Yes, please. And then I would like to go to the vote, members, please. So,
in relation to that, while you're not here as elected members to represent your public, that is not what you're here in the planning committee chair, as in a committee. You're here to turn plan applications for the benefit of the district in accordance with the development plan.
Yes, we are, Mr Lee. But yes, we are, Mr Lee. But we're also elected to take into consideration and to be representatives for the future.
Not to say that in this debate. Whether they think they're not, please do not, because that is, case law is clear. You are not here to do that.
Well, I've said it now. I can't retract it. If somebody wants to report me for saying that, then there's a process for reporting me for saying that, and I'm happy to stand up and say that, Mr Lee. But the thing is that yes, we are here, you know, and I'm not a ward member either. I am the leader of the council, and I do not agree with this application for the reasons I've said, and I will listen to what you say. But then you've also got to listen to what we say.
members, I'm going to go to the vote now. So we are taking the vote on Councillor Stamp's proposal, seconded by Councillor Skeens, that we go against the officer's recommendation and refuse this development.
Which, clarity, that was ones that just been raised.
I think Councillor Helm raised that point, and I actually reiterated it. But I raised the question of policy E4, supports the change, and I didn't get a response to that.
I thought E1 came into big trade by Councillor Bassinger.
Yeah, I think Berners taken some comprehensive. Yeah.
Which, obviously, Councillor Stubbs put forward, I think, position. It's not a case of what others have said. And policy D1 is designed so the position of impact on urban sprawl in the air would fall under D1. You know, as I always advise members, you don't need to specifically reference policies. That's how what we'll do is support members through formation of the reasons for refusal. But if there are clear points, we can build that reason for refusal around that and build policies into that. You know, I'm not expecting members to specifically reference various aspects of D1 or, you know, E5 or whatever, you know, tourism or whatever. You know, that's not what
Sure.
we do, as long as there's a general understanding.
I believe, Bernie, you read back the earlier. Would you like to do that again for us? Thank you.
Councillor Stamp stated the following reasons: that it was harmful to the character and appearance of the countryside, not in a sustainable location, encroaching on the countryside, contrary to policy, I think she said H4 at the time, urban sprawl issues, and impact on infrastructure.
Thank you, Bernard. Does that give us enough to work with, Mr. Lee?
Madam Chair, we can do an amendment. If members, surely we can do an amendment. If members feel as though there are other policy issues that came out throughout the debate, we can do an amendment to my original one, because lots of things came up after I said my
Do we wish
motion.
to? Councillor
Can I
Skeens.
just say something quickly? For me, everybody's contributing to this debate. So if Councillor Stamp has come up with a list of reasons, doesn't mean to say that we ignore Councillor Helm's reasons, or Councillor Bassinger's reasons, or Councillor Skeens, or Councillor anybody, Councillor Beale. All the reasons are the reasons. We are not experts in making those into the reasons, but we have to take them all into account, not just Councillor Stamp's.
Mr. Lee.
Dear Chairman, obviously, when the debate occurs, lots of points always come up, and it's obviously when a member moves a motion, it's to highlight that motion. As Councillor Stamp said, that motion can be amended, and if the committee agrees with that. Obviously, if a member said something that was folly, that had no planning merit, I wouldn't want to, just because that was part of the debate, then that's a form of reason for refusal. So, obviously, as Councillor said, this has had a very big debate, covered a lot of various points, and I think officers just want some clarity on what they have, and we've got the first motion I've bring together would be refusal on design, urbanisation, and about 3 different points. I'll bring that together in one reason for refusal I'd recommend. Obviously there's a point about infrastructure, and then there was the sustainability point. So form 3 separate reasons for refusal from what Councillor Stamps can put. If members wish to propose other aspects, that's within their gift, but it's just so that officers have clear, especially when there's been such an extensive debate, it's just useful for us to actually know what members want the reason for refusal to be clear.
Before I come to you, Councillor Stamp, my understanding from previous debates, Mr Lee, is that less is more in terms of objections, so I would be wary of adding anything more on, really, if you feel that we have...
Through your Chairman, obviously, officers think this application acceptable, so, you know, it is up to the members, it's in their gift, it's in their decision. I would never encourage refusal just for the sake of it or anything, as we know you can win an appeal and still have costs awarded against you because a reason for refusal is flawed. But yeah, so obviously it's in members' gift as always. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we wish members to add an amendment to Councillor Stamp's proposal, or are we happy to take it as it is?
Can I speak first, please?
Go ahead.
I'd like to say thank you for Mr Lee for his advice, and I will ask for advice on sustainability. Do you feel the sustainability or lack of it on this application would stand up?
Through Chairman, my professional opinion, based on the fact that it isn't a care home at the moment, there is employment, so people would have to go there for work, businesses would live, people would live there, there would be businesses there. I don't think it would stand up, no.
And you see, that's why it's a valid point to everything everybody ever said about the debate, and we listen to the officers with that guidance. But if anybody else has, I mean, the sustainability for me was not that there is, because there is a bus stop, and we've had this argument when Councillor Dewick, Councillor Fluker, and everybody used to attend all the other meetings at South East. We had numerous debates on sustainability. So I'm quite happy to remove the sustainability and put that amendment, but if anybody else has got another suggestion on the amendment, I do think we need to say so now. Thank you, Madam.
Councillor Shannon.
Well, Madam Chairman, I understand regarding sustainability there's the 3 main strands, is there not? Social, economic and environmental. And I've heard in the debate from Councillor Schemes and from other people they're concerned about where this exactly is situated. I think it's Councillor Stamp. So I myself might have concerns if that's the reason coming forward to remove it in its entirety, because certainly officers always consider the 3 pertinent points of sustainability in their arguments, as indeed do inspectors.
So is that
I retract that then, Madam Chair.
I was going to say, we suggest that we leave sustainability in, Mr Lee.
Chairman, for clarity, I took Councillor Stamp's query about sustainability to relate to accessibility.
Right.
Specifically, I would say, taking into account the fallback position that is, that what could happen on that side, I don't, and the fact there is a bus stop, which is, you know, public service and relatively good for the area, I don't think that that would be a refusal that would stand up. If members have a concern in relation to tilted balance and sustainability, and that all about that could be a separate. If that's sustainability, if members have that, that's fine. I just think in the accessibility terms, I don't think that is a reason for people to stand up alone because of the fallback position.
Thank you. Is that clear? Are we happy?
No, I'm quite happy to be. Councillor Chan has made a valid point.
Yes.
So we, you know.
So we'll stick with what we have. So members, all those in favour of Councillor Stamp's proposal of refusing this against opposite recommendation, please raise hands, paddles or anything else handy. That's 1, 2, 3. And all those against. 1, 2. And abstentions. That's 3, I make it.
Actually, Chairman, I think it would be good if we did actually a roll call.
Okay then.
Item, if that's it.
Members, are we happy to do that for
recorded vote?
clarity's
I'll
sake?
propose a recorded vote.
I'll second that. Councillor Stamp, thank you.
Members. So we're taking a second. We're taking a recorded vote on Councillor Stamp's proposal to refuse the officer's recommendation of approval. So we're clear. Thank you, members. I will call your names in alphabetical order. Can you please state clearly? For, against or abstain, starting with Councillor Bassinger.
For.
Councillor Beale.
Against.
Councillor Bell.
Abstain?
Councillor Channer?
Abstain.
Councillor Helm?
Against?
Councillor Hall?
Abstain.
Councillor Skeens?
For.
Councillor Stamp?
For.
So what do we have?
Thank you, members. That's 4 for the proposal to refuse the application, 2 against and 2 abstentions.
Three abstentions.
Sorry, 3 abstentions. Councillor Channer, yes, 3 abstentions. Sorry, it's with the apologies mixed in. Yes. Do you want me to repeat that? That's 4 for the refusal of the officer's recommendation, 2 against and 3 abstentions.
Thank you. So that is refused, contrary to officer recommendation. I believe we do have the reasons. Thank you, members.
Sorry, can I just have those figures called out again? Sorry.
1, 2. Sorry, there's just we have.
I can't think that's correct, is it?
Sorry, it's Councillor Bassinger 4, Councillor Channer is abstention.
I think it's 3.
Yeah, sorry, it's just
Three,
this
3 and
confusion
2,
with
isn't
the.
it?
It's 3.
3 and 2. 3 for, 3 abstentions,
It's-
2 against.
It's 3, 2, 3. It's 3, 4, 2 against and 3 abstentions. Apologies, I put one in Councillor Dewick's section.
It's the confusion,
Yes,
isn't it?
apologies.
So I think
Especially with.
we're still where we were, aren't we? Barbara,
Yes,
I think,
we
on
are.
that one.
Councillor Hall, she was abstention, sorry, yeah.
Yes, Councillor Hull was an abstention as well.
Four that I was concerned about. So
Yeah, apologies for that. It's just the. And it's my accent as well, I think.
Thank you. So moving on to item 7 on the agenda, 21/00300/full, Restawyle in Fambridge Road, Althorne, Essex. So this can be found on pages 63 to 76, and I'm going to hand over to Miss Dungate, please. Thank you, Miss Matthews. Flying into position, Miss Dungate.
Thank you, Chairman. Planning permission is sought for the construction of a new 4-bedroom chalet bungalow at the application site, which is located on the south side of Fambridge Road. A new front boundary wall and gate is also proposed, as well as external alterations to an existing shipping container and shed at the site. This is the site location plan for the application. The southern part of this section of the road is largely open and free from built form, with a small cluster of dwellings located southwest of the application site, down here, and 2 detached dwellings located east of the application site over here. These are the existing and proposed block plans. At present, there are some existing temporary structures within the site, such as a caravan, storage container, and some small-scale buildings, including timber sheds. The site is also used for the storage of boats. The site has an established leisure use for the stationing of a mobile home for seasonal occupation. However, there is no planning history to suggest that the site has an authorised use for permanent residential accommodation. As the existing caravan is a temporary mobile structure, the proposed dwelling cannot be assessed as a replacement dwelling, in line with policy H4 of the Malden LDP, and as such has been assessed as a new house within the rural area for the purposes of this application. These are the existing elevations from the front and rear of the site, and these are the existing side elevations. These are the proposed front and rear elevations. And these are the proposed side elevations. This is the proposed section showing that the site drops down from north to south. And these are the existing and proposed street elevations. This is the proposed ground floor plan for the application, which also shows the extent of the parking area proposed at the front of the building, as well as the access drive and front wall. This is the proposed first floor plan. These are the outbuilding elevations, and this is the proposed front wall elevations. These are photographs looking towards the front of the site from Fambridge Road, and these are photographs looking east and west along Fambridge Road. As you can see from the photographs, there is heavy vegetation along Fambridge Road, which makes a positive contribution to the rural character of the area. And these are just some more photographs showing the existing temporary structures within the site, which is largely open and free from built form. So in line with the assessment carried out within the committee report, the principle of constructing a new house in this location is not considered to be acceptable, given that it would be located within the rural area outside of the defined settlement of Althorne. For the reasons explained in the committee report, the new house would be disconnected from the limited services and facilities located in Althorne by reason of its inaccessible location, and would provide poor quality and limited access to public transportation, resulting in an increased need of private vehicle ownership, which would not amount to sustainable development in this area. Furthermore, the proposed development, due to its design and layout, would result in substantial urbanisation of the site, which would result in significant harm and detract from the character and appearance of the countryside. It is therefore recommended that planning permission is refused for the proposed development. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Ms Dungate. Would any other officer like to come in? Mr Lee, no? No? Members, over to you, Councillor Bassinger. And then Councillor Chambers.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Can I just say, first of all, that the applicant, Mr Beanie, has contacted me and would like it to be noted that he would have liked to have come and spoke this evening, but apparently he registered too late. And also, Althorne Parish Council would have also liked to come this evening and make some representation, but unfortunately their meeting clashes and they would have been in Corinth, so they couldn't come as well. I called this application in because I was contacted on the belief that the plot had lawful development and was in fact a residential plot, and I can see from the officer's report that that's not the case, but I'd just like to clarify that there is no lawful development for residential on this site, and also the fact that there is a mobile home on there and not a caravan, that was also something that I was told, and that was also being used as residential. So there are just a couple of points I'd like to clarify if that's correct or not.
Yep, through you, Chairman.
Yes, please.
So in 1994, a lawful development certificate was granted for seasonal occupation of the site with a mobile home, so that doesn't equate to permanent residential accommodation at the site. So I'm not sure about the actual details of when they were to occupy the site, whether it was from February to August or whatever, but it was only granted for seasonal occupation. A mobile home is essentially a caravan as per the Caravan Act, because it is a movable structure that can be moved around the site. So therefore, as explained within section 5.2 of the report, it doesn't amount to an existing dwelling as per policy H4. So yeah, there isn't an established permanent residence at the site, and therefore if they are occupying the site on a permanent basis, then actually that's unauthorised.
Thank you. Does that answer your question? Would you like to come
It
back?
does. Could I just clarify one other point which was made to me, and that's that the applicant had received a letter in July 2019 stating that he had residential permission or residential planning. I just wondered if there was any records of that at all.
Through you, Chairman, I can see that a pre-app was submitted, which I'm not sure is a public document, so I'm not sure I can actually disclose the details of that pre-app. So they haven't applied for an official lawful development certificate for the existing use of the site as a permanent residence, which they would need to demonstrate at least 4 or 10 years that it's been used as a permanent residence, which there isn't planning history for. So therefore, in the eyes of the planning system, there isn't an established permanent residential use at the site since 1994.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Channer, I believe you wish to speak.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Can I just say, regarding the report 5.1.10, it speaks about Althorne having a limited range of facilities and services, including a relatively small post office store to the north of the village. I'm afraid it does not.
Not anymore.
It used to have, but that has been, that has disappeared. A fair while ago now, so I'm afraid it has no facilities like that. Yes, it has one pub to the east, that's correct. I'd like to say, I believe the officer's got this absolutely spot on. Althorne, I'm very well aware, I would declare an interest. I live in Althorne, but not particularly near to this site whatsoever. And I think it's quite frightening when I didn't see the plans, because I looked at it prior to coming to the meeting. 19.7 width. I mean, we're talking about, that's what we're talking about, the width of this building proposal. I mean, we're talking about, 65 foot by 49.5 feet. And the whole frontage would be not landscaped at all, it's going to be sort of concreted over. I mean, I don't know what the material was, but to me it was like everything at the front was going to be totally hardcore or whatever you want to call it. I think the report states that case or whatever it is. And I totally agree, it is going to be urbanisation. Yes, it would have to have a car. Regarding the buses, they're very, very few and frequent. And regarding a railway station, actually on virtually every appeal, I think the inspector has drawn attention to the fact that there might be a railway station, there's no footpath, it's unlit, and it's a considerable distance actually away from the main hub of the settlement. And also, of course, it's a special landscape area there. So I think the officer's got it spot on, Madam Chairman. I do.
Thank you, Councillor Channer. I have to say I agree. I think there's been plenty of precedent that's been very clear that Althorne is not sustainable as an area. So unless anybody else wishes to speak, I would like to propose that we accept the officer recommendation to refuse. Seconded by Councillor Helm. Members, can we do that by assent? Agreed. Thank you. Thank you very much, members. Item 8, any other items of business that the chairman of the committee decides are urgent? I have none. So, members, thank you for your contributions this evening. I now draw the meeting to a close at 21:08. As the meeting is now closed, members are advised not to enter into any further discussion. Members, I forgot, I'm afraid, before the beginning of the meeting, to do my air hostess impression, which is, could you please leave the building by the rear exit? Members and officers, thank you very much.
It's nice.